She didn't even knock. I was sipping coffee on the porch when Karen marched straight through my gate, holding a bright orange paper. She slapped it on my front door like she owned the place and shouted, "This cabin is condemned. You haven't paid HOA fees for 6 months, so we're demolishing it today." I laughed at first, thinking it was some kind of sick prank. I never signed up for any HOA, never agreed to any fees, and this land had been in my family for 3 generations. But then I heard the rumble of engines. Down the gravel road came 3 trucks, each hauling heavy equipment. Bulldozers! My stomach twisted. She wasn't bluffing. Neighbors peeked out from behind their curtains, whispering as Karen barked orders into a walkie-talkie like some wannabe general. A man in a hard hat jumped out of the lead truck and said, "Ma'am, we're here to clear the property. Got the paperwork right here." She waved her fake notice at him and pointed to my cabin like she was dispatching troops. I stood frozen for a second, then calmly walked up to her. "You're trespassing. This land isn't part of your HOA." She smirked and snapped, "Tell it to the sheriff, sweetheart. He's already on his way, and when he gets here, you'll be in cuffs for ignoring community law." Something inside me clicked. She had no idea who she was talking to. No idea that my brother was the sheriff. No idea that my sister worked for federal housing enforcement. And no idea that I wasn't just some cabin owner. I was trained to deal with hostile takeovers a lot worse than this. Still, I stayed quiet, watching as the bulldozer rolled closer, its blade aimed at my front porch. Karen leaned back with a smug smile, certain she'd won. But what she didn't see was the black SUV pulling up behind her, the one with government plates. The SUV door swung open, and my sister stepped out, heels clicking on the gravel like a judge walking into court. Karen froze mid-smirk, her eyes darting to the shiny badge clipped to my sister's blazer. "Federal Housing Authority," she announced, her voice sharp enough to cut through the engine noise. "Who authorized this demolition?" The hard hat foreman looked confused. She did," he said, pointing at Karen. Karen puffed up her chest and barked, "That's right, I run this HOA, and this property is in violation." My sister tilted her head, calm but dangerous. "Violation of what? This property isn't under your HOA jurisdiction. You've just filed a fraudulent demolition order. That's a federal crime." The foreman paled, dropping the clipboard like it was radioactive. Karen laughed nervously. "Oh, come on, you can't be serious. This is just a misunderstanding." She tried to grab the paper back from the cabin door, but I beat her to it. I held up the notice in front of the crowd of neighbors now gathering at the fence line. The fake seal was crooked, the wording sloppy, and at the bottom was Karen's own shaky signature. That's when the sound of another siren cut through the tension. A sheriff's cruiser slid onto the gravel, dust curling into the air. Karen's smirk returned. "Finally," she muttered, "now you'll see what happens when you mess with me." But the cruiser stopped, and my brother stepped out, his hat low, his badge gleaming. He looked straight at me first, then at Karen. Slowly, he asked, "Why did I just get a call that this cabin was condemned? Because last time I checked, this land doesn't belong to your HOA." The color drained from Karen's face. She opened her mouth to speak, but my brother raised his hand, cutting her off. "Careful what you say next. It might be used against you." And for the first time all day, Karen didn't look so confident.
Karen stammered, her voice shaking now. Sheriff, you don't understand. He hasn't paid the community fees, and the board voted." My brother stepped closer, his boots crunching the gravel. "There is no board here. This property isn't in your HOA district, never has been." He held out his hand, and I gave him the forged notice. He glanced at it once and let out a low whistle. "Fraud? Trespassing? Impersonating authority? Karen, do you realize how deep you're in?" The neighbors pressed closer against the fence, whispering louder now. Phones were out, recording every second. Karen looked around wildly, her fake authority collapsing under the weight of real law. She spun toward the bulldozer crew and screamed, "Why are you just standing there? Knock it down!" But the foreman held his hands up and stepped back. "Not a chance, lady. I'm not going to prison because of you." He motioned his men to shut off the engines. The roar of the bulldozer died, leaving a tense silence hanging in the air. That's when my sister moved forward, her tone calm but loaded with power. "Karen, forging federal housing documents carries up to 5 years in prison. That's before we even get to impersonating an officer of the court." Karen's face twisted with desperation. She tried a new tactic, turning to the crowd. "He's lying! This man doesn't even own this land! He's squatted here! The HOA had to step in because he's a danger to the community!" I didn't even flinch. I walked to the porch, opened the cabin door, and pulled out a thick, leather-bound folder. Holding it high so the cameras caught everything, I flipped it open to reveal the original deed, signed and notarized with my grandfather's name on it. The crowd gasped. Karen's mouth hung open. She had just played her last card and lost. The silence broke with murmurs from the crowd, neighbors whispering, some even laughing under their breath. Karen's face turned red, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. She jabbed a finger at me and screamed, "That deed is fake! He forged it! He's lying to all of you!" My brother's eyes narrowed. "Funny you say that." He tapped his radio and called in a code. Within minutes, another black SUV rolled up, but this time it wasn't family. 2 federal marshals stepped out, carrying a portable scanner. They walked right past Karen, didn't even look at her, and handed the scanner to my sister. She slid the deed inside, and seconds later the machine beeped and printed a verification slip. My sister held it up. Authentic, filed in 1972. This land is family-owned, protected by federal registry. Karen's jaw nearly hit the dirt. The neighbors erupted, some clapping, some shaking their heads at her. The bulldozer crew started packing up, muttering about wasted time. But Karen wasn't finished. She stormed toward my porch, trying to snatch the deed out of my hand. I stepped aside, calm, while my brother blocked her path with one hand on his holster. "Don't," he warned. And then came the twist no one expected. Karen pulled out her phone, hit speed dial, and shouted, "Now! Get over here now!" Within minutes, a convoy of SUVs screeched down the road. Men in cheap uniforms with fake badges spilled out, flashing lights on their dashboards. Karen smirked again, triumphant, as they surrounded the cabin. "You see," she shouted, "you're done. Officers, arrest him for trespassing on HOA property." But the thing about fakes, they never last long in front of the real deal. My brother leaned against his cruiser, smirking, while my sister calmly said, "Good. We were hoping they'd show up." Because every single one of those officers was already on a federal watch list, and Karen had just brought them straight to us.